Okay, so the way that this is going to work is we're going to go from the most simple problem to much more complex problems through these videos. And today we're going to do the removal and filter of duplicate rows. So yeah, like I said, we'll start out simple and we'll get more complex, and we'll see as a viewer for yourself. Let me know, where you tap out, what you didn't know, and what you learned from the videos today. I can always go more complex, but I also don't want to, push it too far. So please, if you do like this, let me know in the comments sort of where you fit and what you'd like to see more of. Item number 1, the stationery. Here we've got a column of data. It has pencils, binders, pens, so this is all stationery. We can see that there's some duplicate rows in here. Pencil I see a bunch of times, there's binder. So what I would want to do here is actually clean up this data to get a unique value for each item. So how do we do that? First thing you want to do is select the data that we want to remove the duplicates from. So basically click the first cell and drag down, highlight everything. Once that's selected, go over here to the remove duplicates. It's in the data tab. So just click data if you're not there already and go to remove duplicates. Then a dialog box is going to pop up. It has automatically recognized that this item is actually a header and it's turned that on. You can turn it off here with saying my data has headers. If I turn that off, you'll see that this jumped up and selected the item header. I'll turn it back on and it'll disappear. It's not selected anymore, so now it's just filtering what's kind of highlighted in green here, if you can see that. So I'm just going to go ahead here and say OK, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so it's brought up a dialog box. It's let us know that 5 duplicate values were found and removed. And we are left with 3 unique values. Say OK. And you can see here now we still have the same column header, but now we have 3 unique values. Cool, hey? All right. So now let's move on to number 2. Okay, on to example number 2. So we're going to move up the complexity ladder just a very tiny little bit here. We're going to add another column to our data. Of course, most of the data that you're going to encounter isn't just a single column. Most of it will have multiple records in it, and you need to know how to handle that. So that's what we're going to work on next. So here, this time we've got 2 columns of data. The headers here, the child is the, this looks like this will be in a school, we'll say. Andrews, Cavell, Jardine, and they're checking out pencils and pens, it looks like. So just from flipping through here, I can see that Andrews appears a few times. I see a couple of Jones here. When we are looking for this unique data, though, we don't want to just select this row here like we did in the earlier example and remove the duplicates, because that's going to mess up the data. Let's just do that so you can see what happens. So I've just selected the names of the kids that are checking out stuff here. Well, let's remove the duplicates just like before. Excel's smart enough to know that you're probably making a mistake, so it's going to warn you. So it's giving you a remove duplicates warning. Microsoft Excel found data next to your selection. Because you have not selected this data, it will not be removed. So you can choose to expand the selection, which will move this out and include the other columns next to it, or you can continue with the current selection. We will just continue with the current selection just to prove a point. So I'm going to go remove duplicates, and we're back to our initial dialog. We can see that only child is selected. Item is not in this list. We're going to click OK. And we're going to get the same message box we did in the previous. 4 duplicate values found, 6 unique remain. But look at our data. Now you've got kids, and it's just a mess. So you can see why you wouldn't want to do this. So we will click the little undo button and return to our original data. And I'm just going to expand this. A little tip, that's a little side tip for you. If your data is ever like this where it's kind of hovering, you can't see the end of the data, you can click and drag here to see larger, but what you can also do is just double click on it, and by double clicking it will automatically size it to the proper size of the text inside the column. But I digress. Okay, let's highlight all of this. Now we're going to highlight both columns. So instead of the one, which we just did in the example, now we're highlighting both columns. We're going to remove duplicates. Now we're not going to get that warning this time, right? Because there's no data next to it. Excel's kind of done its own little analysis of this, and it says, looks okay. But this time it's given us child and item in the columns. So it's going to do a unique filter based on both columns. So just because Andrews is in here 1, 2, 3 times doesn't mean that every record will be filtered unless it's the same item. So here, Andrew's pencil, Andrew's pencil, Andrew's pencil. So that should happen. Jones, on the other hand, he has a pencil and a binder. So when we unique this, Andrews, in theory, should all roll into one record. Jones, because of these being different, should remain as 2 separate records. So let's say OK, and we get our little message box, and boom. All right, so Andrews is only here once. Jones is here twice because of those items being in the second column. So that is basically the way to handle multiple columns. Okay, here we are with number 3. We've added another column, which is the school column. And I really like this example because this is a really good representation of the kind of data that you are going to run into more than likely if you work with other people's data. Sometimes you're going to get spreadsheets that are shared, and so different people are entering in different columns. They're adding different records, and they enter data in different ways, and it can be really frustrating sometimes when you're trying to clean up that data. So this is a really good example of that. So first off, let's examine our data and get a real good understanding of what we're looking at. So we've got the child, the item, just like before. This time we've added in the school. Let's just eyeball this first and see what we think is going to happen when we filter the data. Okay, so we've got, I see Jones in here a couple of times, but he's taken a pencil and a binder, and it's a different school. It's probably a different Jones. So I don't think that's going to roll up into a single row. But I do see Andrews in here a bunch. So let's do this. First off, let's highlight the different records for Andrews so that we can really evaluate what we're seeing with the data. And to do that, if you're not familiar with highlighting multiple records, you can click and drag, but then if you hold down the Control key on your keyboard, you can continue and click and drag and highlight multiple cells. Okay? And then I'm just going to make those yellow so we can see them. The other thing I'm going to do here as well, just to make this as clear as possible, is I'm just going to pop over here. Got ABC. Just going to put these here because when this gets filtered out, they disappear, and I want to remember which schools disappeared. So first off, Andrews has taken out a pencil in the ABC school 4 times. So what we've got here is capital ABC. Here we've got A.B.C. dot. Lowercase ABC, and then once again this looks the same as this ABC. So those are over here for when we do our filter. So let's highlight all of this. We'll go back to our data tab. We'll go to remove duplicates. Once again, this is going to pop up. It's going to tell us it's highlighting and going to filter on these 3 columns. We will say OK. It found 1 duplicate, which is interesting. 9 unique values remain. So let's say OK. So we still have 3 Andrews pencils here. If we go back and look over here, we will see that there was a capital A, B, and C, the A dots, there's a lowercase, and then another capital. That lowercase has been filtered out. So the first thing that this tells me is that when I do a remove duplicates, it does not check for upper and lower case. So this is a great example. These two records, this one and this one, both filtered and were removed. Okay? So this guy's gone. Let's mark him. So we have these three remaining. So let's go back here again. Let's do back to our data tab, remove duplicates again. Say okay. No duplicate values found. So what's going on here? Why am I seeing ABC, ABC, pencil, pencil, Andrews, Andrews? Something's wrong. Well, I'll tell you what's wrong. This is not always easy to spot, and sometimes it requires a little bit of digging. I can tell you that the reason that this is not filtering is because if I double click on here, so like I was going, if I double click on a cell, I can go back into the cell and add data into it. I can see here that the cursor is right snug up to my C. If I can continue typing, or I can put a space like that. Let's go down to the one down here and double click on that. And you see how it's not snug up to the C? If I press the backspace, there's a cell in there. There's a blank space. And because that space is there, it does not see these two as the same record. Now, in further videos, I will get into how to identify when data that looks the same is actually different. There is actually some code that you can type into the cells that will evaluate them. It can check the length of them. It can also check to see if they match and let you know, in a positive or a negative in a different cell, whether your data matches. But we will get into that in another video. For now, what I want to do is just remove this space, and I want to highlight all of this again. Remove duplicates, say OK, and boom. That one's gone. So now this guy has been cleaned. That just leaves us with these two, and this is probably a pretty straightforward situation. You can figure out exactly what's going on here. One person types in ABC for the school, one person is in the habit of doing it with the periods, and you can just come in here and change that data, highlight this, whoops, going to be in my data table, data tab, and remove duplicates, say again, okay, and there you go. Now Andrews is by themselves. So that is a really quick explanation into why sometimes dirty data can mess up when you're trying to do a remove duplicates. And like I said, I will cover this off in another video. There are some really cool tools that you can use to locate that data when you're running into these problems. Okay, so before we end part one, I do want to point out one other way of removing duplicate records that is non-destructive to the data and is a really quick way of viewing this information. I don't want to leave it out just in case viewers aren't aware of how to do it. So here we've got some really simple data we're going to be working on in part 2 of this video. We're going to be creating tables and adding slicers to this at that point. But for now, I just want to quickly show you how you can sort this information really quickly in just a couple of quick steps. So I'm just going to select all of the fields here. I can either click and drag to select them all. I can click this little box to the left of the columns and just above the rows to select everything. And then I'm just going to go to my data, and I'm going to go to filter. So filter, when I click this, Do you notice here that it added these little squares with a little drop down arrow to the right of each column? One of the annoying things I find about with Excel is when you do this, it kind of covers up some of the names. And so like we showed earlier in this video, if you just hover over the column, you'll see your cursor change to this little line with an arrow going both directions, and you double click, this will expand the selection to fit the text. But a second add-on to that little tip is that if you have all of these columns selected, when you double click, it'll automatically resize every column. So double click here, and you see how it fit each column so that now you can see the header information, and it even resized some of this as well to be much cleaner. I really like that little tip. So now we can click out of here, and now these little squares with the drop down arrows, you'll see here, you can click down, and I'm just going to scoot this over because I think that went outside of the screen here. There. You can click down and you can see you've got a consolidated list, an individual record for each person, and by clicking on Andrews, I can tell Excel that I don't want to see Andrews in here. I can turn off the records I don't want to see. When I say OK, now I'm just seeing that information. So once again, let's go back here. I can choose Select All, and it'll turn all of them on. I can click Select All again and turn them off, and then just pick the one I want to see. So just Andrews this time. Now I'm just getting Andrews. And I can continue to filter across. Let's choose Jones instead. Actually, let's just choose both of them. And then I can continue to filter across. Now I can choose Item, and it will choose the records in the item field based on the ones that I've selected. And I just want to see where someone has... I just want to see pencil, let's say. There you go. Now I'm just seeing... Oh, what happened there? I had binder selected. Now I'm just seeing pencil. And then, of course, you can continue to do this across. The other thing I can do really quickly from here is I can sort. So just by clicking Sort A to Z, I selected this column A, which is the child, and I can sort A to Z. And now Andrews is above Jones. And then turn these off. I can go back to Select All, or I can click Clear Filter. And go back here. Clear this filter. Cool. One other thing I'll just show you real quick is if we go back. Oh, I do want to point out before I go back there. You know how here we actually clicked Sort A to Z? Now when you go back in, you can see that this is highlighted in gray, so it's still sorting. And just by seeing the little drop-down arrow that I pointed out earlier, do you see it's got this little arrow to the right of it where the other ones don't? That's telling you that this is still being sorted, but it's kind of messed up because we unselected everything. So you can go back in and just do it again, and now everything will be properly sorted. The other thing I just really wanted to point out quickly is if we go in here and we select, turn everything off, let's say we just select Andrews and Jones. And let's say we go in here once again and we do turn everything off. We just choose pencil. And I don't want to go in and unfilter every one of these at the same time. I can go over here to my sort and filter section, and I can click clear. And that will remove the filter from all of the columns. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay. That is simple sort. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. If you liked this video, please subscribe and click like. If you didn't like it, go ahead and click the you didn't, but please let me know in the comments what you didn't like about it, and I will try to change that for future episodes.